What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wednesdays with Ted. We're going to figure something out here. We're going to have to get a nickname or something. But for now, when he's on my channel, it'll be Wednesdays with Ted. And then whenever I'm on his channel, I'm sure we'll come up with something interesting to tag this stream with. But we are back this week after having last week off. And what a week to come back. A lot to talk about. With the Niners just lackluster butt kicking that they received from the Kansas City Chiefs. And before we get into that, I just want to ask Ted how he's doing and is he ready to go in on these guys?
Hey, Aaron, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and definitely ready to talk about yeah, what went wrong and what we can expect moving forward.
Yes, Sunday was a bad. That was just as bad as you could pretty much get it. You know, defense played absolutely atrocious, and offensively they just, as usual, they stalled out in the second half. Jimmy, did his best to give away the game at certain points in the game, and the Niners just were never able to overcome. I guess we'll start with the offense and just trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this offense. Just this inability to really sustain drives, quote unquote, be high powered for the amount of talent that they have. I don't know if you saw the interview after the game, and IU kind of made mention to the fact that the Niners got a lot of talent and they shouldn't be only scoring 23 points in a game like this. Like they should be able to kind of, I wouldn't say match score for score, but make it closer, and that hasn't been happening. What is Ted's opinion of exactly why the offense is as bad as it's been? I have my ideas. I think they might match with yours, but I'd be interesting to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Well, let's start with Jimmy G. Uh, he is just not that good of a quarterback. He misses a lot of guys that are open. He made that boneheaded interception on the goal line. So, you know, he's inconsistent at best. He did have some decent throws during the game,
Yeah, he did.
but a lot of the best ones were high, right? I mean, there's a high one to Kittle, a high one to Debo. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to go on and on about Jimmy G. He's our backup. Um, we're probably lucky to have him as our backup, but I just never see us as um, going to do a lot with him. Everything's got to be pretty perfect for us to win with Jimmy Garoppolo, and things weren't perfect on Sunday. Um, for starters, um, we Trent Williams was coming back from a high ankle sprain. I'm not convinced that he was 100%. It seemed like he was kind of limping around out there. Mike McGlinchey clearly was not 100% from his calf strain. Um, and to defend him a little bit, I mean, there was one play where Frank Clark had him with his hand like right on his throat. I mean, like choking the guy out, and McGlinchey gets a holding call on that. I don't know how that works, but I posted some pictures or reposted some pictures about that. He was bad, so there was a lot of pressure coming off the edges that made Jimmy even worse than he normally is. I think we got away from running the ball. It felt like we were being successful running the ball, and for some reason, mysteriously stopped doing it. And then there was a big drop by Ayuk. It was third down, and we were close to the goal line, and we ended up settling for a field goal. And that was early in the game, maybe first drive, or I'm not exactly sure when. But bottom line is, lots of things went wrong for our offense. So I mean, got to blame Kyle Shanahan some too. I'm a Shanahan fan, but um, you know, there's been a lot of criticism of him coming out with these great scripts to start the games, and then things kind of devolving after that. And I think we saw that on Sunday.
Yeah, to me, it's a combination of many things. It's undisciplined play with penalties, drops, turnovers. Kyle just not being this supposed quote unquote offensive genius, because this team is not bereft of talent. They have plenty of talent. And I'll be honest with you, I think the biggest problem on our offense, other than Kyle, is Jimmy. I think teams don't respect Jimmy. I think teams take away what Jimmy does best and forces the Niners offense to kind of go against type, against script. I think it's kind of sad that you can do well with a script, that once the script goes away, it's like, absolute just dog water on the field. I don't understand that. Jimmy's a 9-year pro, and some of the things that he does on the field are they're not even mind-boggling. They're just stupid. The interception at the goal line to me was Jimmy being classic. I'm going to stare down my receiver. I'm not going to go through my progressions. I'm going to play scared. And when the rush comes, I'm just going to throw something up there, hoping that someone comes down with it. And he throws it to the shortest guy on the field. If anything, if you want to throw a pass like that, you want to get someone like Jawan Jennings over there to try to jump up and get that. And then if you watch the replay, you see Jeff Wilson Jr. running. I forgot what the name of the route is. If it's a 7 route or there's a route that he runs. The halfback kind of curl out of the backfield over the middle of the top of the formation, and he was wide open and he didn't see him. So it's just more
Texas route.
The Texas route. I don't know why I call it the 7 route.
That's all right.
And it was just more of the same old. When I watch games, man, I don't get really excited for the offense. To me, it's always waiting for mistakes to happen, and that's really bad. When I watch this game and I see McCaffrey on the field with Jimmy, all I could think of is Trey. Like, how cool would that have been? How cool of an offense would they be if Trey Lance was the quarterback, healthy, and they had a guy like, Christian McCaffrey on there. And so, a lot of people are counting the game against the Rams as like some sort of automatic win, and I don't see it that way. That they're in their place. They still have Cooper Kupp, and they still have Stafford, and they still have a really good coach. And the Niners are getting close to kind of code red here soon if they continue to keep losing games, because this is a year where their division is totally winnable. The NFC's down, and the Niners are not making use of this golden opportunity. They're clearly not in the league of the Chiefs, which I don't think many teams are. And it's okay, because if you had a quarterback that could go at least close throw for throw, you're like you said, your defense every game is not going to be able to post a shutout. And there's going to be games where the defense gets absolutely dog walked. Remember the game in the early 90s when it was Bills versus 49ers and nobody ever punted in that game? It was it was in Candlestick. It was the K gun in its prime. I mean, the Niners had a pretty decent defense that year, but they just, Jim Kelly and the Bills they were really good. And you're going to have games like that. But the Niners had Steve Young, and the Niners had offensive weapons that were able to compete. And we're just at the quarterback position where we are at a disadvantage every single week, no matter who we play, and it showed on Sunday.
No doubt about it. I think one other thing that I would mention is, Debo with the hamstring pull. I'm not sure when that happened during the game, but it's pretty easy to think that had an effect and slowed him down during the game some too. That, because he clearly was not didn't have one of his better performances against the Chiefs.
Definitely not. We have Peo Time in here. LA Rams YouTuber, really, 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 really good guy. Probably one of the coolest Rams fans I know. He says, "Hello, Aaron and Ted. Hope you are both well. I'm excited for this game, but a healthy nervous as a Rams fan." Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm more nervous because I think the 49ers are kind of at a big crossroad right now in this season, and this season can go two ways. And I don't have a ton of confidence in this team right now, Ted, to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with people that come in here, because a lot of people want to hear fake optimism.
Like we own the Rams.
What's that?
Like we own the Rams.
Like we own the Rams, yeah. And when we lost to them in the most important game last year, too. So,
yeah. And we did own them, earlier this season, but a lot has changed since then,
The defense
right?
is not even close to what it was.
No, we lost Emmanuel Mosley. Eric Armstead played half of that game. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw played in that game. So those are some three huge guys that are all. Well, Emmanuel Mosley clearly will not play, and I don't think Dre Greenlaw will. And they're saying maybe Eric Armstead might, but he didn't practice today. Um, also the Rams offensive line was in shambles when we played them, and it probably still is to a certain extent, but it looks like they're going to get Brian Allen, their center, back, and we all know how important the center is in
Oh,
this
it's
sort
super
of
important.
in this scheme. This sort of Shanahan scheme and McVay scheme is very similar as far as the fundamentals. And then also when we played the Rams, Troy Hill was out, and he's eligible to return off of IR, and it sounds like he might, um, or maybe even will. And then Nick, is it Nick Long or David Long? I forget. They're cornerback 3, so they were missing their cornerback 2 and their cornerback 3 when we played them, and both are likely to be one. The cornerback 3 is back, and their cornerback 2 is likely to be back, I would say. And then obviously Van Jefferson is likely to come back, and you would list him as their wide receiver 3, but I mean, I don't see any reason why he isn't better than Allen Robinson this year. He hasn't played yet, but why he couldn't be a bigger threat to us. He's also a deep threat, and their only deep threat burner. Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to sit here and say we own the Rams this week, especially not without Juice. Debo's dinged up. It sounds like Juwan Jennings is dinged up. Dwelly is not Juice playing
No,
fullback. And it sounds like that's who will play. Warner, I have more confidence in Warner just because he can block better, but Dwelly has much better hands and is a much better receiver. It's too bad. You're going to get half of a solution with either one of those guys, in my opinion.
I just want to touch on the comment from Damian Lee. He says people ignore and they're scared to fire Kyle because he will win to the next team like Andy Reid. Please debate this. Yeah, there is definitely a feeling within 49er fans that they're afraid to move on from Kyle if he continues to kind of be this 500 coach and we continue to be short and we continue to have these injury issues every year and all this, that. That's a chance at some point down the road because, Damian, I don't think that's close to being something yet. Not as long as Trey is here, because you got to remember, Damian, if a new coach comes in, they're not married to Trey. They're not married to this roster. And they usually will make wholesale changes starting with quarterbacks. So with that being said, we're probably tied to Kyle Shanahan at least for the next 2 years. But yeah, if he goes somewhere else and has success, that happens. But if there was someone better out there to move on to, I would definitely look at it as a fan and consider it in my mind as a possibility down the road. But who would you go to right now? Would you go to a Ken Dorsey? Would you go to a Eric Bieniemy? A lot of these guys that we talk about are on teams with elite quarterbacks, and then these elite quarterbacks make them look really, really good. They're not doing it with an untalented roster, so you have to always take that into account when you say, "Oh, let's just plug in Eric Bieniemy and keep D'Amico or move this guy, and then everything." It doesn't work like that in the NFL. And as we know with the Niners, injuries is a problem every year. So even if we have the best coach in the world, we seem to have a roster that can never stay healthy. So let me see what Frisco has to say here. He says, Jimmy limits the office based on the lack of execution related to complex schemes. Therefore, Kyle has to dial down the degree of difficulty to match Garoppolo's abilities. 100%, man. 100%. It's like this offense is as simplistic as you can get, and it looks like it on the field when they call plays, and it's the same 15 to 20 plays that we see every single week. The Niners offense is boring. They're boring. It's I don't know. What do you think? Is the scheme and the lack of execution and the way the offense looks have a lot to do with Jimmy Garoppolo's inabilities?
Absolutely, and it also has to do with like you were talking about, stacking the box and taking away what he's good at, taking away the run game, and yeah, just forcing him to throw deep, which he cannot or will not do. So,
I think it's a
and then
mix
as
of
far as
both.
the coach, like I don't care what Shanahan does at his next stop. I mean, I care about what happens to us when he leaves, right? I
Right.
mean, that's all I care about. If he goes on and does well, great. I mean, I do think he could end up like Andy Reid someday, as that offensive coordinator, coach who lost in the championship game, lost in the championship game, finally got his quarterback, and then won the Super Bowl. Because Andy Reid forever was like the guy who couldn't get it done until he got Mahomes. And so maybe I'm not saying that Lance is Mahomes, but he could be the Mahomes for us as far as the guy that helps us get it done, and maybe in a different way, but still enough to get us over the hump.
Yeah, Shanahan to me got master classed on Sunday. That was a
Oh,
master classing by Andy Reid. Andy Reid is a play calling genius, and everything he called worked on Sunday. Uh, I just that was, I mean, every it seemed like anything they threw up there, and Mahomes has a lot to do with it because he's just a generational talent. So, but that was as close to a as a teacher, crushing student moment that I've ever seen before in coaching. Quick, I want to say hi to Mariah from 49er Faithfully, always here to support the stream. I try to support hers as much, but she definitely outdoes me by coming into this stream all the time. Brian Culp is in here. Brian, how you doing, man? He's always here supporting. A lot of you guys are you're ride and dies, man, all the time, no matter if I can get, a gazillion people in here or it's just, a handful like today. So I appreciate you guys for coming in here. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to the defense. Did D'Amico get exposed? Does it have to do with the injuries? Is it a mix of both? Do the 49ers need to go back to the drawing board? What the hell happened on Sunday?
yeah, I mean, D'Amico got exposed, I think. But yeah, the injuries are huge, right? I mean, you're missing Kinlaw, you're missing Armstead, you're missing Aziz Al-Shire from the giddy up. Then you've got Dre Greenlaw missed all the second half, and I don't even know how much of the first half too, but quite a bit of the game. So there's your whole interior of your defense, other than Fred Warner and like I guess Givens, are quality players. I think Ridgeway's okay. I just don't think he's in that same conversation. These are stars, right? People talk about you're missing starters. I'm talking about you're missing stars. Obviously Mosley out with the ACL, that's big. But then some other problems are you got guys on the field that you think are back, but they're not really back. You got Mooney, Ward, Charvarius Ward playing with, the groin where he was questionable. I think he only played because it was a revenge game against the Chiefs. I think if it's any other team, or especially an easier team, we wouldn't even have tried to trot him out there. But certainly because it's the team he came from, I think we let him play when we shouldn't have. Jimmy Ward's playing with one hand. Now he is going to be rusty because he hasn't played all year other than those two plays in Carolina when he broke his hand, the kick return, and I think he played one play on defense before they figured out his hand was busted. So clearly there's rust there. That's going to take time, but he's also playing with one hand against Kelsey, right? I mean, that's a huge mismatch to, probably just to begin with, but certainly one-handed. And then, Bosa is coming back from the groin too, and maybe he was coming back a little bit early. Plus, he had those two mental mistakes. I couldn't believe he lined up off sides,
I
and then
saw
he
it on the
lined up,
telecast when he did it twice.
did
I'm
it
like,
twice in
they're
a
gonna call it
row.
again.
I'm like, yeah, you could see he was lined up the second time. I'm like, what is going on? It reminded me of D Ford, but almost worse. So I mean, not consequences wise, I'm not going to the Super Bowl, but I mean, to do it twice in a row, it just seemed like he just wasn't checked in. Um, so yeah, so we're missing a lot of guys. A lot of guys are supposedly back who maybe shouldn't have been back. And then Andy Reid, did the master class, like you're saying, exposing Bosa, who, he's aggressive. He's coming on the pass rush, and they're totally taking advantage of it. It really reminded me of a couple weeks ago. I was watching the Cowboys play the Eagles, and the Eagles did a similar thing to Micah Parsons, where they basically weren't even blocking him, and they were just kind of like running everything by him and at him and taking advantage of his aggressiveness. And finally, they had to just kind of put him back into coverage to keep it from happening. And unfortunately, that's not something you can really do with Nick Bosa. He's not going to cover well like a Micah Parsons will. So I don't know what the answer is there, and I hope it's not easily copyable for other teams. But it does seem like we got exposed a little bit there, and it might have opened it up for other teams to do a copycat type of something.
Well, the Niners also missed a ton of tackles. Again, mistakes, mental mistakes. If you watch the post game, everybody just seemed off. I don't know if they were just tired because they just got whooped, but it just seemed like a lack of intensity from some of these post game interviews. This team, I think, got humbled on Sunday, and I'm glad they did. I think sometimes in pro sports, you have a higher expectation of yourself, and you feel like, oh, well, we did it last year. We're gonna turn it around, and we're gonna run it back. We're gonna get to the playoffs again. It just doesn't work like that. Every year is different, and I'm kind of glad that they got. I'm not glad we lost, but I'm glad that they got humbled. I think everybody needs a little bit of humble pie, and this team is definitely one of those teams. They just have they have a Hall of Fame quarterback who's going to have a gold jacket one day. And if you are not on it, if you do not capitalize, that guy is going to make you look foolish. The Niners did not even get near him on Sunday, other than one sack. They got no pressure on him at all. He stood back there and literally picked the Niners apart. The Niners also gave up plays like a 3rd and 20, I think we gave up on a screen pass
to Jet McKinnon
to peg leg McKinnon, Mr. Tired Legs. The Niners just got outdone. I think the Niners didn't come in the game with the same intensity, and they got exactly what they deserved. So I'm all for them maybe coming out a little bit more fired up because they're going against a division opponent that they see all the time, but that doesn't guarantee anything. Peo has to say, it's something from the Rams' point of view. The Rams did something weird last game. They had 8 players get a carry in the benching of Cam Akers. McVay has never had his entire coaching career, Thoughts? Yeah, well, I've never seen him be that dedicated to the run like he is, like Kyle Shanahan is, but that's always something. If you can, the more people now we have to worry about in the run game, and you have, they taking plays away from Cam Akers, and now you have so many different people coming at us. That'll be something the Niners have to pay attention to, for sure. Randall Riley says, so about 10 players named with issues and with health or not practicing, but D'Amico was exposed. It was a little bit of both, man. It was a little bit of both. Listen, man. There's teams that have less talent than the 49ers do on defense, and the Niners had enough guys to at least make this game a little bit closer than it was. I just think the Niners were out. I think Andy Reid out-schemed D'Amico. And you're right. The injuries to guys that weren't on the field on Sunday definitely hurt us too. It was a combination of both. But the Niners they had enough players on defense last Sunday when the game started to at least make this game respectable. So I'm not going to say that they were completely gutted. Do they not have some of their interior defensive linemen and guys coming off injury? Yeah, but they definitely had the players. But we'll see. Maybe with guys getting healthier and so an easier opponent or two, maybe the Niners will get it back on track. But that to me is kind of false security if you're getting good against bad teams. So it'll be interesting to what they do against the Rams if they can get back on track. But that game to me is not a guaranteed win for sure.
I agree. Not a guaranteed win. And, I think a lot of people got lulled into a false sense of security with our defense early in the season, with playing Fields, with playing Geno, who's starting to look better now, but he wasn't very good week 2. And Russ Wilson has been bad all year. Baker Mayfield, not good. And then obviously the Rams are a good offense, but like I said, they had all second and third stringers in their interior offensive line. So the left guard, center, right guard were all scrubs essentially, or at least replacement level players at best. And then Falcons, we had Mariota, made him look like a star. and then obviously now Mahomes. So I think we got lulled into a false sense of security. The injuries started to pile up, and now it's time to sort of reassess and sort of see where we are. But at least I think the silver lining is I think we can stop with all this Super Bowl roster talk and stuff like that. This is not a Super Bowl roster with Jimmy G. It
They're
could be,
talented. We
yeah,
have
it could
talent.
be if everybody gets healthy and we play great. It could be, but right now we are not there. Not with these injuries and not with the guys not playing as well as they should be. It's just we're not there, and I think we should stop talking like that for at least a little while until there's more evidence that would suggest that, and ideally coming against top teams, not bottom QBs and bottom O lines protecting them.
Yeah, to say that the Niners are a Super Bowl caliber team, and I maybe I got lured into that false sense of security was definitely a misspoke on my part and a lot of fans. Jimmy Garoppolo, when this team is healthy and everybody's here, is one of the biggest question marks and biggest kind of things that kind of brings this team down a peg or two. And a lot of people say, "Oh, what do you mean? He's the best guy for the job right now." Even I got lulled into that thinking, yeah, I guess, if you think about it, Trey, maybe he's not ready and the Niners have a win now roster, but we've all been proven wrong by that one. Jimmy isn't. We're 3-4 right now, and you can't tell me that Trey Lance couldn't have led this team to a 3-4 start with his limited experience. I absolutely think he could have. And it's just, to me, it's more of the same with the same player all the time. It's the same mistakes. It's the same questions that we have after every game about, if Jimmy just would have did this and he wouldn't have thrown this. And dude, we're 9 years in. Be ready for it every week. It's going to happen at some point. He's never going to all of a sudden turn into Tom Brady. It's just not going to happen. And he's also with a coach that doesn't upbuild his quarterback either. So the Niners, man, right now the Niners are stale. If the Niners were to have a crap out year this year where they just kind of hit the bricks really hard, even with a really good roster, I wouldn't be surprised. This is, like you said, this isn't a Super Bowl roster. This is a talented roster. This is a very highly talented roster when healthy. They have enough players to compete against, for a Super Bowl. But I just think in the quarterback department, I think they lack. And I think in the play calling department, I think, Shanahan is still, that one step behind some of the best coaches out there. He's just not quite there yet. So it's and in the injuries too. That's the current theme. It always seems like it's the current theme with this team. It's always the injuries, quarterback play, and bad coaching at times. So you're right. I don't see us as a Super Bowl roster by any stretch. I see us as a really talented team that could make a run if a lot of things went right. But if you're going to put us up there in the category of a Super Bowl ready team, I'm going to have to disagree with you.
Now, right now, there's only three. It's the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs.
Yep. It's the rest of the league is going to be, and I think there's only a couple, and there's not very many teams. There's not very many teams with winning records right now, too. It's very few. Brian Culp says they can still make a run. Yeah, they can, but they got to get healthy. And Jimmy's going to have to turn into something that we haven't seen before. And I don't know if he's capable of that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but yeah, there's let's see, like right here, Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, Giants, Cowboys. See, I look at the Eagles, Bills, and the Chiefs and like one tier. Mm-hmm. And then I see the Cowboys and Giants down like another tier. I'm not saying that none of those teams are good, but as far as like, if you had to do a power ranking of like who are the three you don't want to face right now, I feel like the Giants and the Cowboys, until proven against really, really good competition. Vikings, the Vikings are actually pretty decent too, but they still have the same guy at quarterback. So he's like Jimmy. It's only a matter of time before the other shoe drops with Kirk Cousins. So, but yeah, there's not many teams. There's a lot of losing teams this year, and that's what's more frustrating. Ted, is this is a gettable year, a gettable division, And the Niners are just deciding, like, you know what, we don't want to be in the mix. No, we're good. We have a really good roster, but we just can't put it together. In a year where if the Niners would have just been a little bit better in a couple games, they would be at top of that division with the 2-game lead, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. So, we've kind of touched on Shanahan was out coached. I mean, we have to be honest with him about the record. I mean, he's got a losing record through 6 years. Jim Harbaugh through 4 years had more wins. And I forgot who made that point. It might have been Grant Cohn, but Shanahan is what he is. I don't think he's an elite coach. I think he's a pretty good play caller, but I mean,
well, also I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. Like, it's not just the play calling, it's the overall coaching and like letting these guys back in when they're not ready to come back in. It's not only hurting you in that game, but you're exposing them to re-injury. You know, by letting somebody come back in. It's much easier to get re-injured when you're not 100%, when you're still dinged up. So I think that was one of my frustrations from this week. Besides not staying with the run, was, you know, was Mooney Ward, should he have been back? Should we have let Trent Williams play? You know,
should we let Jimmy Ward play?
I mean, shit, same thing with the NFC Championship game. Should Trent Williams have been playing there? At least in the NFC Championship game, we had McKivitz ready to play. On Sunday we didn't have McKivitz ready, so I don't know that I really want Jalen Moore in there, especially after, we haven't touched on that, but the special teams atrocity where he jumped off sides on a field goal attempt and took points off the board. Just inexcusable. And I can't even remember ever seeing that before. I guess
I've seen the line resets like that before. I've seen that before, but I've never seen an offensive player get pulled off sides by that.
Yeah.
That was a first.
Yeah. It's just pathetic.
Oh, but that's just the Niners. They implode in all areas anytime they have one of these games. They get a ton of guys hurt. They get their ass handed to them. And players left and right make crucial mental mistakes. And then we're talking, well, if they just would have, but that's who we are in these games. When we seem to have these kind of games every year, and it's always against a team who's a pretty good litmus test that we could really take advantage of. And we come out and we just, on all fronts, where we're, penalties, turnovers, lack of play calling, ingenuity. I'm trying to think of a word, but like just everybody failed. Kyle failed. Jimmy failed. The defense failed. D'Amico failed. It was
blame to go around.
There was the blame sandwich is definitely. It wasn't just Jimmy, that's for sure.
No,
I think we can all say Jimmy is the reason all the time, but that's definitely not the case. Jimmy doesn't play defense.
Mm-hmm.
Our special teams has been one of the worst the last couple of weeks. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. It's like people don't even want to try.
Yep.
There is just a lack of tenacity on that special teams, man.
Oh, well, yeah. Like when Ambry gave up the contain on that kick return, put him right at midfield, and then boneheaded Juwan Jennings hit the guy when he was Pacheco, when he was already out of bounds. 15 more yards tacked on.
What was that? Why?
They're like taking their first snap from our 35. I mean,
against a team like that, you might as well just walk the defense off the field and just tell them, here you go. Because you're not stopping them 35 yards away.
Put a bow on it. Yeah.
Kurt Chameleon, who's a really good football player, by the way, or really good. He plays drums. Yes. He's a really good drum player. There's another guy that who follows the channel. I think it's Tommy Huxley. He's a really good guitar player. He says, "Hey, Aaron, the penalties, the lack of discipline, the lack of leadership with Kyle is frustrating." Yeah, we were just talking about that. And then he says, "You got Pro Bowlers on every level. This can't happen." That's the thing. It's like we're not like an inept roster here. This isn't like a first year in Harbaugh with a bunch of 2-week rookies in here. This is a seasoned NFL roster. And they're still acting like this all these years in. It just doesn't make any sense. He says, haven't heard Brian Griese's name. I heard it a little bit on Sunday, but nothing of like they weren't praising him or anything much, because to me, I feel if anything, the quarterback position has regressed. But in a way, I mean, how can you really measure that with Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest with you? So, but let's talk about the one lone bright spot on Sunday, and that was McCaffrey. He had a couple plays You see the potential. He
Yeah.
makes something out of nothing. He is a quick hitting little dude. Like I can't, like I told you early in the stream, when I see him, I think of Trey, because I'm thinking of, wow, man, if only,
Yeah.
with him and Trey on the field with all these weapons, they could be something special. But yeah, what did you think of his debut in the midst of this butt kicking?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like he was able to do a lot more than you would think, based on only a practice and a half. I think he got there halfway through the practice on Friday and had the practice on Saturday, which is really more of a walkthrough anyway. So I was pretty impressed with a limited dose. Really excited for this Sunday at the Rams, because he'll have a full week. He should be, like they're saying, he'll be able to run any play.
Which is
And we may
insane if
really,
you think about it.
yeah, we may really need him. I saw some people panning the trade, saying it was desperation, and saying, oh, overpay for a running back. And if Debo doesn't play, I think everybody's gonna be damn glad we got CMC. I think they're going to be like, yeah, good thing we have a guy who is super versatile who can fill in for him. I mean, I'm not going to call him Debo. He's not Debo, but I mean, he definitely looked more explosive on Sunday. And part of that is probably Debo's hamstring, but ultimately it's, I'm so glad that we have him in our arsenal. I would say there were a couple other bright spots on Sunday. I mean, Kittle had 98 yards in the TD.
He looked good.
On tight ends day. I mean,
Still looks a little slow.
I like that he matched Kelsey's 98 yards and then upped him with the TDs. So, in the head-to-head game, Kittle was clearly, I wouldn't say he was better, because Kelsey was pretty amazing, but his stats were better. And then, all right, one bright spot that a lot of people aren't talking about, Aaron Banks.
Yes.
Aaron Banks, was the highest graded player, I think, on either team. And he's barely given up any sacks or anything this whole season, and so many people written him off last year, and I was just like, come on, he hasn't even played, be patient. You can't write off these draft picks for at least 2 years. Ideally you got to give them 3 years to really know what you got for a lot of these guys. And so I'm really glad to see him coming around. I'm just would be happier if Trent Williams was playing better next to him. And I do think Trent will, if he can heal that ankle. There's a part of me that kind of wishes we had just rested all these guys that were questionable, or that I think maybe rushed back, and had them really ready to kick the Rams' butts this week, instead of what we did, which is make it look like we were whole, where people got extra disappointed. I mean, nobody would have been disappointed if we lost to the Chiefs without Mooney Ward, without Trent Williams, without McGlinchey. I don't even know if we could have done. I guess we could have Brunskill and Jalen Moore at the tackles. But anyway, if all of those guys even gave Bosa an extra week of rest too, nobody would have been mad at us losing to the Chiefs. It would have been like, hey, we were hobbled. But the way it was, we made it look like we were whole. We got expectations high, including me. I picked us to win. When I saw everybody was going to play, I wrote an article saying, oh, we might have a chance if everybody can play. And once Mooney Ward and Hufanga were cleared, I was like, we got this. We're going to win this game, And,
yeah, and we got the pick in the beginning, and I definitely got lured into that mindset, but I was quickly corrected very quickly.
Yeah. No, and we just never stopped them, never made them, they never punted. I mean, my God. Yeah. And then a couple of things that hurt us too, just to circle back to defense. Hufanga went out for a little bit and came back, and so did Lenore. So, they did come back, so that helped, but leaving the game hurt. And, Ambry, I don't know if Ambry's kick return should have supposed to have been Lenore out there on the wing, but who knows?
I saw an interesting tweet by John Chapman that had to do with the trade with Christian McCaffrey. He says, one of the reasons the 49ers were okay trading all these picks for CMC is that they love to redshirt players. Players the 49ers are already developing for next year. He's got Nick Sakiel, Jason Poe, McCrary Ball, who I completely forgot about, the linebacker, who's promising.
Yeah, he had that
Linebacker,
pick in the preseason game against Green Bay. I was there.
yep. Linebacker Curtis Robinson. I totally forgot about defensive lineman Kadelia Davis,
Yes,
who is
DJ Jones clone.
Yep. Quantrez Knight, a guy I forgot about, and Taylor Hawkins. So, like, we have. I understand why the Niners do this, where they kind of stash guys. And I know a lot of people say, well, that's stupid. You should play every year for that year, and you shouldn't play trying to play for the future. But I mean, that is the one thing you could say is the Niners kind of already have next year's draft on the roster or on the practice squad redshirting for next season. So that is pretty interesting. I was glad Chapman brought that up. Where are we at here?
Well, and it's not like CMC. Other people were saying, "Oh, the Niners are all in," but we're not all in. It's not a rental, man. We got him under
this isn't a rent.
through,
Yeah, CMC's not going anywhere after this season.
no, he's under contract through 2025. So unless he breaks down, we've got several years of him being productive with Trey Lance. So
could you see the 49ers moving away from Kittle after this year because of this trade?
Oh, I sure hope not. He's my favorite player.
I've kind of grown not tired of him, but I've kind of grown, fallen out of love with Kittle just because of the injuries.
A lot of people have.
No, it's the tight end university. It's this, it's that, it's the wrestling. It's less about what's going on the field and more about what's going on off the field. And he looks slow to me.
Mm-hmm.
He gets open, but I don't see him running away from anybody. I didn't know he hasn't been super healthy, but I mean, when did the excuses stop? People can fall apart. I mean, to me, he's the way he moves on the field now, especially between plays, he moves a lot like Gronk. He just looks beat up. Yeah, he has this beat up kind of walk to him, like someone who's just really just hurt, but doesn't want to give up playing. Is Armstead playing versus the Rams?
But Kittle, the thing about Kittle is, like, doesn't he have all this dead cap? I mean, I think that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, I don't know exactly
I don't think there's any benefit to getting rid of him,
right?
Because of all the money we owe, or either owe him or pay him, whatever it is, that it's on the books, regardless of whether he's here or not. And so,
yeah, if the Niners are going to be paying for him, even if he's not here, then you might as well.
I think that's it. I think the name that I've heard, which is equally disturbing to me, is Ayuk.
That would be a horrible move.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, once you pay Debo, you kind of made your bed there. The chances of us paying 2 wide receivers is pretty slim. True. I mean, I know the cap's going up with TV deals and everything, but someone had mentioned Ayuk, and I don't want to see either of them go, to be honest.
Right.
I don't know. I do think there is some value, though, Aaron, to having one too many stars every year, and then it's sort of like, yeah, someone is going to go next year, so you guys figure it out, right? Like, play for it, earn it.
Yeah, go after it. If you want the bag, go out and play for it. It's just the thing
done. You're going to we'll ship you out.
The Niners aren't bereft of talent in any stretch of the imagination, but it sucks, man. Oh, thank you very much, Ryan G. Hensley. He's someone. I don't know how long he's been on YouTube, but I've definitely noticed him recently. He's been really making his headway on YouTube. I saw him. I think he had he was either on Grant Cohn's show or he interviewed Grant Cohn. So welcome in the chat, man. I appreciate the $5 super. I thank you for the support from a fellow YouTube streamer. I don't know exactly how long you've been doing it, but I'm interested to watch your journey, and I wouldn't mind collaborating with you in the future once things get rolling here. I want to touch on some of these comments. Really, thank you again, though, for the super.
He has a Warriors show, too. I just saw, too, that
he does. See, I'm not a basketball fan, but if I would, I might have to become a Warriors fan.
Nice. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I see then people be like, you weren't a real fan.
Whatever. Most people join that way.
One of the questions that was here is Armstead playing versus Rams? There is a little bit of like a thing that he might play. I hope he does. I think this defensive line is better with him on it. I wish Kinlaw was playing too, but it doesn't look like that's going to be something that's going to happen very much this season. Looks like more of the same. Somebody made a comment about my knee injury and how I might have either a torn meniscus or a strained meniscus, and they're like, "Oh, there's not enough room for you on the 49ers injury report or the IR." And I thought it was funny because it's like I like a team where guys are always hurt, and the last couple of years I've been hurt kind of all the time with my shoulder and now my knee, so I thought that was funny. But I hope he plays. It looks more and more like he might. So hopefully that's the case. And if he comes back, be healthy. Like Ted says, don't come back just because you think you have to come back for a game to play against a certain team. Come back and be really healthy and be ready to contribute, because with him on the field with Bosa, it's definitely a difference for sure.
It is like I don't know if you saw, but there are some running stats that people posted. I think Jordan Elliott was posting them, and it was basically like 111 yards uh, without Eric Armstead and something like 64 yards with him. Now, to be fair, a lot of those times where Armstead was on the field and it wasn't, Kinlaw was also on the field and not. And same thing with Aziz Al-Shire. I'm not saying it's all Eric Armstead, but he's definitely a force, and he eats a lot of double teams
He does.
in the run game and in the pass game, which helps free up our pass rushers as well.
Would you be against the 49ers maybe making a free agent signing of, say, like a Ndamukong Suh?
I would love any defensive tackle. I think we need a defensive
because we
tackle.
signed that McGill guy that played on the Vikings.
Yeah, T.Y. McGill.
Yeah, where has he been? I haven't seen him. Has he played?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because
he's on practice.
Oh, go ahead.
Squad?
Yeah, I would like to see.
No, we signed with the 53. I don't know.
Has he not been able to pick up the defense or something? Or I don't know. Because, he had a pretty good preseason. And, the Niners tend to make these kind of signings.
For the Vikings.
Yeah. Remember last year when they signed Omenahu. Aaron, I'm getting bad when I get old. I used to be able to pronounce everything. I was one of those spelling Nazis, and now I'm turning into the person who needs to be corrected.
Hey,
so
Omenahu, it's fine.
It's old age, man. That's what happens. I'll be wearing glasses soon too, so it all works out.
Getting old, yeah.
It does.
That's why I got my specs on.
I used to mess with my father back when my dad before he passed away. I used to always crack on him like, "Oh, you're blind," right? And he's like, "I'm telling you, you wait." And now he's gone. He's been gone, and now it's all happening. And if my dad was alive right now, I'd be like, you know what? I apologize for messing with you because my eyesight's going, my knee's bad, this is bad. Like, it happens, man. It like the flip of a switch. It just happens. The reason I wanted to
hear you.
Exactly. The Niners traded for Omenahu last year, and that's where I kind of thought maybe this move with McGill kind of, the Niners, sometimes they make these like under the radar moves.
Yeah.
And then down the road, you are like, wow, they developed him. And now he looks like a player, like some gem that another team got rid of and didn't get the chance to develop. So yeah, I was hoping to see him. And I wouldn't be against us making a free agent signing of a Suh or something.
The problem with Suh is that he's a character risk.
Yeah, we don't want that with this team.
We don't do it. I mean, we just absolutely, ever since Reuben Foster, we will not, sign guys like him or Antonio Brown, or those guys are just off limits for this organization. And I'm glad. I think we could use Suh though. So part of me is like, I wish we would make an exception to the rule, but it only takes one bad apple to let into that locker room, and it could screw up a lot more than you think for the chemistry of the team. So,
I mean, look at the guy that owned us on Sunday from the Chiefs, number 55.
Frank Clark.
Yeah, he's got some legal troubles. It figures that
how about that? Yeah, do you notice that this has been brewing since June and
they waited until after the 49ers game?
Yeah, I posted I'm like, the league hates us, man. I can't.
They do hate us. They do hate us. Why couldn't he be? I mean, I don't know. It probably wouldn't have changed anything, but
it's either one of two things. The only two things I can figure out are, one, it's like the whole Eddie D winning 5 rings and busting. There was no cap, but busting the cap that the other owners kind of were following back then. Or it's political, and it's just like, the NFL, these billionaire owners, they're all super conservative, and San Francisco is a very liberal area. Um, the whole Bay Area is. I don't know. Those are the only two things I can figure out of why. But there's clearly an agenda, and I think we saw it in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs with the no calls. I think we've seen it in other ways too. Maybe as the Kaepernick thing, I don't know, which is kind of ties to that politics thing. I don't know, but I'd be curious to know what it is and if it's fixable.
All I know is if there's proof of referees that bet on games and back in the past in the NBA. Yeah. So there's no doubt that there can be. I mean, look at those referees trying to get autographs last week.
Well, and the referees that the Commanders were paying to point shave. They weren't paying to win, but they were paying to keep it within the certain point amounts so that the bets would pay. So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there's all kinds of collusion going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Definitely. It's one of those things. If you're not on the inside, you're on the outside, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, and it's funny that the Niners, ever since the cap has been introduced, we haven't won a Super Bowl post salary cap era. Yeah, I think the league was just tired of us kicking their butt every year. So they had to figure out a way to keep the 49ers out of the Super Bowl. What a better way than to implement a salary cap where the Niners can't just go and say, hey, you want to win a ring? Come to the 49ers. Now it's like, hey, you want to win a ring? You can go to like 6 other teams because they all have a fair shot at winning it now. So kind of sucks. Yeah. But I mean, the championships still count, but I wish we had another one. Let's talk about injuries. We have the return, or at least the removal from the PUP list of Jason Verrett. Do you think we'll see him this week? Do you think we should play him? I don't think we should. That we're playing on turf. I think they should start someone like Dante Johnson or someone and just be good with that. And do you think once he gets back into playing shape, if he doesn't get hurt, do you think he could, be a valuable asset?
Totally agree. No turf. I also just think, whenever he comes back, he's not going to be back. They're going to sprinkle him in lightly. I think versus the Chargers, I wouldn't expect to see him back in a starting role across from Mooney Ward for several games would be my thought. I mean, I think it'll take a while. He hasn't played since September of 2021. So he's going to be rusty as all hell. And so even if he could play physically on the knee, I don't know that he would be better than our other options right now.
Right.
Until he gets back up to speed. So yeah, I do think he'll contribute. I think he will end up being, if he can stay healthy, which is a huge if.
Big if.
I think he'll end up as our cornerback 2, or maybe even cornerback 1. He might be better than Mooney Ward. I don't know. The 2020 Jason Verrett was pretty damn good. Certainly in that same conversation, top 10, maybe top 5 corner in the league. So I think maybe in an emergency versus the Rams, if a bunch of people go down, but I think if at all possible, they're going to keep him off that turf.
The 49ers, from what I gathered, play a lot of zone against the Chiefs on Sunday. And I know Mooney doesn't excel as much with his own defense. He's better in the man-to-man. I can't think that the guy, I mean, he played well these last couple of years in Kansas City. I don't think he's fool's gold. I just think, like you said, for as far as injuries go, I just think he's maybe came back too soon and his own team knew how to go against him. I can't imagine that a guy is just that much of fool's gold and he's so bad and, the Niners made a bad move. I think he's worth the money. I just think Sunday was just a combination of a lot of things because, I mean, I don't know. He was good in Kansas City. He was probably one of their best corners and they couldn't pay him. He's not going to all of a sudden come to the Niners and suck. So I think
he was doing great this season.
Yeah. So
he was doing great before the injury. So no, he's real good. One of the best man cover corners. But yeah, was never great at zone. And, I'm almost virtually certain that, he wasn't ready to come back from that groin and he rushed.
I don't think he was either.
Or we allowed him to rush it.
Other players that look like they're going to, like you said, we talked about Debo, Juwan Jennings, possibly, Greenlaw. I'm trying to think who else is on the injury list right now. Jimmy
That's
Ward,
most of
I
it.
would assume. I mean, he's
He's off the list.
is he
'cause
off the is
he's just playing with one hand though.
yeah, I don't know.
They're saying he's going to keep playing nickel. That's what I saw today.
Jimmy Ward's
Which
playing nickel. I don't know. I feel like he's slowed down a bit. Oh yeah, Samson Ebukam. He's got like an sore Achilles or something, which is
he'll
just like
play. He already played with that, so I think he'll play.
I've dealt with the sore Achilles before, just from walking on pavement all the time in my job. You know, being on a lot, you know, a
Mhm.
pavement lot. Everything's sore, so I can understand that 100%. Penalties and special teams, I got that here. We kind of touched on it. The Niners got to get better in the penalty department. Special teams, we made all these signings in the offseason, and we made a switch at special teams coordinator, and we're just as bad this year, if not worse than last year. What the hell is going on? Is it just guys aren't buying into their role? They don't want to be a special teams player? Is it because we have kickers that don't have any hang time? Like what is your observation about this horrible special teams so far?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, Mitch Wishnowski has great hang time, but yeah, I mean, Robbie Gold doing kickoffs, he doesn't have a lot of leg, and so we get a lot of returns because of that. Um, yeah, I mean, I think special teams suffers when defense is injured. A lot of the same guys are playing special teams. So when your defense is missing top starters, then special teams suffers a little bit because of it. Block kicks are a big thing. We had the one for a touchdown, counts a lot, and then more block kicks besides that. I think there was one in Atlanta too. So and then Ray, he hasn't been that great. He's had one really good return, but other than that, he's been just kind of eh. And he's had some fumbles, and they count the fumbles even if we recover them. It still counts against special teams, so that's hurting us. Yeah, uh, it's a bummer for sure because I was one who thought special teams might just be special this year.
Me too.
Brian Schneider, we added. We added, Oren Burks, the linebacker, George Odom, the safety, Ray McLeod. It was like first time ever where one team netted all of the top special teams free agents. It's never
Yeah,
really
and Lynch
happened
was really
before.
bumping his chest out during the offseason with all the interviews and stuff.
Yeah,
He's really proud of himself of trying to retool the special teams, and they've looked horrendous. I mean, just bad, really bad. Like
other than Robbie Gold, who has only missed one field goal that I'm aware of. So I mean, he's been really good.
yeah, and Mitch hasn't been bad. He had that really cool punt that did that thing where it like
Oh yeah, knuckled there.
almost like
Yeah,
golfers do that sometimes.
right after the false start on the field goal, and then they muffed the punt, and we got the ball back, and then that's when Jimmy threw the interception.
Jimmy threw the pop fly to the defender. Man, what a bad. And man,
well, you were saying he was targeting Ray. Well, that's not even true. He later said he was targeting Kittle on the outside, and he just left it so short it looked like he was targeting Ray.
He has he is such a noodle arm, man. Man,
part of that was being under pressure, but yeah, he does have a noodle arm, and yeah, it's.
When you watch 49er games, are you like me? Are you just so bored watching offense? Is it as boring to you as it is to me? Or are you
more like that? What you were saying, just like that, like, oh, what's going to go wrong next?
Yeah,
just that
same thing. I'm like that with injuries too. I'm always like, okay, who's dropping this game?
Yeah.
And it's funny. Every time the Niners get a game, like I said, that they get like mollywopped, like of the loss to the Eagles a couple years ago, where they didn't have any offensive linemen, or I forgot what game that was. I don't know if that was 2017 or 2018. They just had so many injuries in that game. And it's like every time they have one of these games where they just get completely ran off the field, not only do they get beaten, but they lose like 2, 3, 4 guys in that stretch. So it's like when it rains, it pours. I'm not extremely optimistic right now with the Niners. I'm not saying that the Niners don't have a run in them, especially after the bye week. This team seems to need their bye weeks more than anything. But that's not always a guarantee that someone's going to come out and play good. Sometimes teams come off the bye week and they're worse. So this game, and I guess we'll look ahead to the Rams and then we'll get out of here. This game against the Rams is going to be the same as it always is. It's probably going to be close. The Niners need to go back to what they do best, which is run the ball. I mean, they have the guys to do it. They have Wilson. They have CMC. Stick to what you do the best. And on defense, try to get that pass rush after Stafford. Stafford is like Jimmy. He's going to give you one a game. And we've done it to him more than once since he's been on the Rams. So the Niners, if they can keep this game close, I think it's more in their wheelhouse. I think if this game becomes a shootout, I think the Niners lose. Personally, because Jimmy's just not that guy. I will say this though, in 2022, the fact that the Niners have to protect their quarterback in a passing league is something that it just doesn't. I don't compute that. We're in the year 2022. It's a passing league. Brady's on the verge of 100,000 passing yards, and we got a guy that we have to protect to not throw the ball too much, because if we do, we expose him. Like, how does that even compute in this day and age? But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Rams?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Like I said, I feel like they've got their center back. The one place the rest of their O-line is pretty much in shambles. They got Havenstein at the right tackle, who's real good. They got Brian Allen at center, who's real good. But everything else is kind of a shit show for them. Oh, pardon my French, is a mess for the Rams.
That's okay.
I forget who's playing right guard and left guard, but I know their left tackle, Noteboom, tore his Achilles or his ACL, so he's done for the season. So they got a lot of scrubby type offensive linemen at the other three positions. I think David Edwards, their left guard, also had concussion issues and he's on IR. So I still like our D-line against their O-line. I just hope Greenlaw can play because we really missed him against the Chiefs. The Cup is their only weapon other than maybe Van Jefferson. I'm not a big fan of Allen Robinson. I don't sweat him. Higbee's all right. But obviously Cam Akers doesn't look like he's going to play. So they're down to like CJ Henderson, I think, for running back. Their defense is good though. Here's the problem. The Rams, I just saw a stat today, they're number 2 defense against the run. And that's the kind of defense that absolutely kills us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are a run first team, and like the way we hide Jimmy is by running it and by giving him play action off the run. I think they were like 8th overall defense and maybe 14th against the pass, but that 14th against the pass is going to be better with Troy Hill and David Long back. So, I think it's going to be tough to score against them. Like you said, hopefully Stafford gives us a turnover, or maybe a pick 6 or a fumble 6 would be great. I think he's second in the league of QBs for turnovers. So he's giving them away to everyone else. So hopefully he'll give one to us too, or maybe more than one. Might take more than one for us to win. But yeah, I think it's going to be real close, and I wouldn't be surprised if we lose. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't think we own the Rams this week. I think we might win, but I certainly wouldn't put any money on it, not as of right now, with all the people that are questionable to play.
Larry Krueger made an interesting point about the Niners taking their playmakers that they have and start spreading people out and start making the playmakers win their one-on-ones, because they have a lot of guys that can do that. Instead of playing this like bottled up offense where everything is so predictable, he's like, I don't understand how the Niners don't, just go 3, 4, even 5 wide like that they used to do back with the New England Patriots. And I've never thought of that too, why the Niners don't just spread teams out.
Yeah, like Ray, Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, and CMC. There's 5 guys.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes bring in Jennings.
Yeah, but and I guess Debo or
put
Jennings,
CNC in
whoever plays,
because you have a lot of guys there that can win one-on-ones, especially Ayuk. And he also said that the Niners don't do a lot of hurry up. They play at such a snail's pace. That's the other thing too. Spread them out and go hurry up. the league, we're so predictable on offense, man. It's almost nauseating. Like, it's just yeah, Peter Lee even said it. Don't the Rams spread their playmakers out? Yeah, I mean, but it's the league that everybody spreads their players out. I don't understand. The Niners are playing football in the 1980s while everybody else is playing in 2022, and that goes right to their quarterback too. So, yeah, I'm not extremely confident, but I mean, if the Niners can somehow escape with a W and go into the bye week 4-4, for as bad as we've played, we'd be at the top of the division again. We'd have a chance to get healthy and then maybe have a second half run and then see where it takes us and gets us into the playoffs. After the Chiefs game, I have a lot more of a realistic view of this team. And I just don't think this Niners team is quite at the level of the top teams this year. And I think it would be a disservice to us as fans if they made it to the far end of the playoffs, because I just don't think they can trade blows at this point. I would feel a lot better if Trey was at quarterback and our offense was more dynamic, and we could lean on our offense a game or two if the defense is struggling. We don't have that option. Somebody made a good point. It's like the offense has to play keep away, run game, defense, and if we have to depend on Jimmy, we lose, and that's pretty much been the case this year in any games we lost. Anytime we have to depend on the quarterback, he's just not able to come through.
100% agree. Speaking of quarterback, what do you think about trading for Tom Brady, who clearly wants out of Tampa?
No, I don't. I think Tom Brady's done. Honestly, I say that
more done than Jimbo.
True. I don't know. What would we have to give up? Would it would be a three-way trade? Why? Has there been talk? Is it a legitimate, or is it just?
I mean, there's people have been talking about it. Mostly Grant Cohn.
Mostly Grant. Yeah. Grant likes to stir a conversation. That's what he does best. I love Grant.
Does. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. If the Niners don't have to give up a whole lot and it's more of a player swap and it's a three-way trade, yeah, sure, why not? But if it's giving up assets for a 45-year-old quarterback, absolutely not. Don't do it. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to give up a lot, but I would give up Jimmy and a little something else. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be something, solution. Huh? That would be something.
I think he, I think we have a lot more weapons than the Bucks do.
I mean, it's just, I think his time with the Bucks is just kind of, it's everything is played his course. I do think that he has fallen off this year. He's just not quite the same mentally too, with all the situations going on in his personal life too. So, but I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate the chat being active tonight. Kind of a weird night sometimes, Wednesdays. I think people are just not as active. But we're going to be going, hopefully, to Ted's channel next week. I told Ted it'd be a little bit easier for me. I can relax. And he's like, absolutely not. I just, I've been hosting 3 to 4 streams a week now. So anytime I could just go and, answer questions and stuff and not have to worry about scanning the chat or, uploading, doing the intro video and having to do this, that, and the other. It's kind of nice, but apparently Ted's not going to let me relax when I go on his channel. So I guess I have to work. But yeah, guys, I appreciate everybody coming on. Thanks for supporting me and Ted, and be ready for the show to move over to Ted's channel. I'll put it down in I have the name of his channel in my community tab where I posted this stream, but he's just trying to get up to speed on the whole StreamYard thing. And once he is, and once we got all that figured out, yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be nice to, go on his channel and kind of get this going on his platform as well. So I hope you guys will join us there. Until next time, guys, stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Aaron.